Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is good to be back. Yes, I am live right now and living, and we'll talk a little bit about that in just a moment. But we have been taped for the last about week or so, end of last week, beginning of this week, and I'll give you the reasons why in just a minute. But I'm glad to be back here. Glad to have a great show for you today. We got a couple of topics. Hopefully we'll have time to get to both of them. We're going to first talk about Republicans voting to return to earmarks. They had a little secret parlay, a little secret vote in the House of Representatives, a anonymous vote, and a secret ballot, I suppose, vote. And they are voting, at least for now, to return to earmarks. It's not 100% official, but they're definitely moving in the wrong direction. Excuse me. And then we're going to talk about one of the great governors, Governor Abbott out of Texas. He did a press conference yesterday, and he had a guest appearance on, I believe it was Tucker Carlson's show. Actually, now that I think about it, it was actually Sean Hannity's show. And we're going to talk about some of the things he warned us about, because basically he said, if you think there's a crisis now, and there is, that there is a bigger storm coming on the border, and being the governor of Texas, he would certainly know. But before we go any further, I have to talk about our sponsors, Big Daddy Unlimited, otherwise known as BDU. They help keep the lights on here, and I greatly appreciate it. If you want to check out our sponsors, you go above the video, no matter when or where you're watching the show, and look up, and you'll see a description of our show. And in that description, you will also see links to our sponsor. Big Daddy Unlimited is your Second Amendment headquarters, because not only can you get factory direct pricing on guns and ammunition delivered directly to your door, but 100,000 other items related to Second Amendment, from survival gear to tactical to knives, you name it, they got it. Check it out. Factory direct pricing, shipped directly to your door. Big Daddy Unlimited. I call them your Second Amendment headquarters because they also defend your Second Amendment on a daily basis. Then we have patriotthreads.org, apparel with a purpose. Remember, the promo code is basically the initials to our show, John Martin Talks, so JMT, 20% off. They are apparel with a purpose. They are a total fulfillment center. So essentially what that means is they can help you design t-shirts. They can help put together a program for charity events, all kind of things. 20% off, JMT promo code, patriotthreads.org. Then we have Recoil TV on YouTube. Of course, we have our own YouTube channel. You spell it all the way out, John Martin Talks YouTube. Check it out. We need more subscribers and viewers there every day. But Recoil TV is all about the Second Amendment as well. And they have all kind of videos that relate to guns, ammunition, tactical gear. They demonstrate it, you name it. They can show you how to use it. And they have their own YouTube channel, Recoil TV, and we have an archive channel on there as well. All right, let me just tell you, ladies and gentlemen, let me get a quick sip here. Hopefully I don't look too worse for wear, but if you're new to the show, you might not know this about me, but basically, I don't talk about your personal business. But when it comes to my personal life, as far as experiences I've had, things that have affected me, from the fact that I've been recovered or recovering from alcoholism, or recovered, I guess I should say, from drug addiction and alcoholism. I've been sober almost 33 years, actually. What's today's date? Let me see. March 16th. What is it? 16th, 18th? My eyes are not 18th. Well, actually, I've now been sober. I hadn't even thought about it because of what I've been going through. But I've been sober now for 33 years, March 15th. And I don't mind sharing with people my what happened to me and how I got through it and stuff like that. So this next issue I debated about how to talk about, but then after I thought about it and I said, and I talked with some friends of mine, and I thought the best way to do it is just the way I've always done it. Just be straightforward and honest with you guys. And that's always worked in the past, and I see no reason why it shouldn't work today. Let me just cut to the chase, and then I'll share with you a little of my experience. Essentially, ladies and gentlemen, well, not essentially. The fact is, I had COVID-19. I got pretty dadgum sick, not as sick as others have been. The whole thing, going back to the first time I felt symptoms up until right now, has been probably in the neighborhood of 20 days, something to that effect, because I was feeling the effects of it and didn't really know it at the time. But let me just give you a quick breakdown. First of all, bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, I'm feeling pretty chipper right now. I may look a little run down, I don't know, but I feel pretty good right now. Now, I also want to tell you that I haven't talked for like a straight hour like I'm doing now in several weeks. So I can't guarantee you that I won't run out of gas, which is basically the bottom line. My experience with COVID was a just total lack of energy. But about not quite 3 weeks ago, I was about in the middle of a week like this, I was starting to feel like I was getting a little bit of a cold, maybe. And I didn't put a whole lot of stock in it because, people get colds. And I was about to embark on a fishing trip. And usually if I have any sinus, which is where colds always seem to start with me, that salt water just gets rid of it pretty quick. So I was about to embark on a fishing trip. So I figured, oh, well, I'll go out here and I'll be all right. And pretty much that's what happened. I went out and I had a great fishing trip. I even came back and talked a little bit about it on that following Monday. But I did have one thing kind of happen to me that at the time I wasn't thinking too much about it. But on our way back, it's like a 2-day trip. And on our way back, I woke up in the middle of the night and I had kind of a chill, which is somewhat unusual for me. I don't normally do that. And so I was like, this is a little different. Got back to the dock, felt okay. Fast forward to the Monday I came in here. I was tireder than usual. I'm usually tired after these trips, but I was tireder than usual. Still didn't have a whole lot of any kind of symptoms, but fatigue. Fast forward to I was doing the show, and I did the show Wednesday, live that Wednesday. And then I was preparing, and I felt really lousy after the show. I didn't really share it with anybody, but I just felt pretty lousy. Fast forward to that Thursday, and I was literally preparing my notes at like 4 o'clock in the morning, which is what I do to get ready for the show. And it just kind of hit me that, man, I just don't have the energy to do this. I can't do it. So I texted my producer and told him that I wasn't coming in, and we planned on playing a kind of a best of thing. And, I went back to sleep. Well, we ended up not doing the show on Friday. And to put it in a nutshell, in the next couple of days, I got really, really sick. I mean, to the point I had a fever, a low-grade fever, and I don't have one now, by the way. It's a little warm in here, but not from that. But I just got very, very sick, and I kept escalating to the point that I knew I had to have a test. So I decided I got one of my free tests. I actually back up on Thursday after I felt like I wasn't ready to do the show. I actually went for a test. Then it takes a couple of days to test the swab deal, right? So, excuse me, I'm sorry, but I kept getting sicker is the bottom line, and had zero energy. It's kind of like I attribute it to, or I compare it to like your battery for your cell phone. I was kind of in the red zone the whole time, that if I had thought I had any energy, just getting out of the chair pretty much took it. And I had one point in the whole thing where I really got, I'll be honest with you, I got scared. I really thought that I didn't know which way this thing was turning. My wife was actually working the midnight shift, so I was basically home alone. And I've got a pretty big house, so I was able to totally kind of quarantine myself from the rest of my family. And thank God she just tested a couple days ago again, and she's negative, so life is good. But I was sitting there in my chair, my lazy boy chair, and I woke up and started kind of coughing, and I couldn't seem to control it, and it seemed like it was getting worse and worse. But lo and behold, my little dog, I got a little toy poodle, she's like 6 pounds, miniature toy poodle, jumped up in my lap. I guess she knew something was going on with me, and through the grace of God and that little dog, I was able to kind of stabilize while I was petting her, my breathing a little bit. And the next morning, I felt better, but not good. And essentially, I've gone through about a week here where I've been basically asleep. I mean, I'd wake up, do a little something, and go right back to sleep. So I say all that to say that now the health department, I've been in contact with them after my positive test. They essentially tell me that, once I got that I'm past the infectious stage. And I was surprised they recommend you don't take another test. By the way, I'm not giving COVID advice for Mr. Algorithm and everything else. I'm simply sharing with you my experience. I have a close friend who is a lung doctor, so I was in constant contact with him, and he was advising me. Bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, I think I'm past. I wouldn't say I'm totally out of the woods. I'm sure this show is going to take something out of me, but I am extremely grateful to be here. I am not telling people not to take vaccines, that kind of thing. In fact, I don't have to make that decision now, because what the doctors have told me is that I should not take a vaccine for about 6 months. I'm just telling you what they told me, and that I should just basically assume that I have the antibodies right now, and then we can cross that bridge a few months later. And that's pretty much what I'm going to do. So I'm really grateful to be here. As I say, I'm not giving any kind of advice. I will just say this. I practiced the safety precautions probably, I would say maybe above average. I'm not going to say I was a fanatic about it, but I live in a county that has been mask mandated for a year now. And so I wore the mask every time I went out in public, all of that kind of stuff, not alone in my car, but when we went to the store. I've always been kind of a hand washing guy going way back because my mom was a home ec teacher. So I've done a lot of the things, and I got it anyway. And I don't know exactly where. I've tried to contact. I haven't had a whole lot of public contact with people. Probably the most contact I have is on those fishing trips I go on. Not saying it happened there, because they're out in about as much air as possible. The bottom line is, ladies and gentlemen, it's out there. I can tell you this, and I'll shut up. Some people get it and it's not a big deal. Others get it and obviously it can kill them. And there was a time when I thought that I might be heading towards some type of hospitalization. In reality, I never really got that close. But one thing I can tell you, I can understand why the death rate is higher for people who have comorbidities and are elderly. Because I was thinking about my mom a lot during this. My mom died a couple years ago at 98, and thank God all this happened before that. But I took care of her, my wife and I, at home. And if she had gotten what I got back during that time, it probably would have taken her out, because her system could not have handled the onslaught that I went through. I'm lucky that I'm reasonably healthy. I guess that's the bottom line I would tell people, is to try to stay as healthy as you possibly can. But when I think about it, and I'm not really trying to make this political, but maybe I am. When I think about like Mr. Cuomo-sexual Andrew Cuomo, who put all those people in nursing homes, and apparently Gretchen Whitmer and other Democrats across the nation, she's the governor of Michigan, have done the same thing. Shame on them, because If they knew anything remotely like what I have experienced, then you can see how they were literally putting those people at high risk and ultimately death. So I'm grateful to be back. I just kind of want to let you know where I am with it. Hopefully I'm just going on from here, and I don't intend to make it a focus of the show, except in the sense that like I've done with many experiences in my life, when the time is right, I will freely share with you my own personal experience, and I certainly advise you to practice what you need to do for you and your family, and listen to your doctor. All right, let's move along. Oh, I want to play one more thing. I'll conclude with this. I want to play this video. This is President Trump, and I kind of modeled myself after him when I thought about coming out with this experience. But I don't think in this that I could say it better than the president did. I agree with this video 100%, and I feel a kindredship to it like never before. And I think that we can conclude this with the President of the United States telling us at the time when he was going through the same thing I did. Check it out.
Let it dominate. Don't let it take over your lives. Don't let that happen. We have the greatest country in the world. We're going back. We're going back to work. We're going to be out front. As your leader, I had to do that. I knew there's danger to it, but I had to do it. I stood out front. I led. Nobody that's a leader would not do what I did. And I know there's a risk, there's a danger, but that's okay. And now I'm better, and maybe I'm immune. I don't know.
I mean, I don't think you could say it better. And I love the part towards the end there where he talks about that's what a leader does. And I really admire that about President Trump. I have tried to live that way myself. And so that is one of the reasons why I decided to share this with you. All right, let's get into the show here. We've got a story out of Breitbart, and this is an opinion piece by Joel Pollack, who is one of the editors at Breitbart. And this is about restoring earmarks in Congress, and we'll explain exactly what those are in just a minute. Secret Republican vote to restore earmarks is a betrayal of the voters, according to Joel Pollack, and I would agree with him. Lipstick on a pig, man, because they're trying to explain this all different kind of ways. And the way I look at it, this picture sums it up. You can put whatever fancy stuff you want on it. At the end of the day, it's a pig. And that's what this earmarks is all about. The House Republican Conference vote on Wednesday to restore earmarks was a betrayal of the voters and undermined one of the remaining legacies of the Tea Party. And there's no doubt about that. This was very big with the Tea Party. John Boehner, who was the Speaker of the House, no friend of the Tea Party, by the way, actually went with the Tea Party on this, and basically they did away with earmarks under his watch. Essentially what earmarks are tag-ons to legislation, and it explains it a little bit here. And I have experience with earmarks myself back when I was mayor and city commissioner in my little hometown of Hawthorne, and I'll explain that in just a moment. The vote was close, 102 to 84, but this is no consolation, especially as it was by secret ballot, preventing voters from holding their representatives accountable. So this doesn't have a legal standing just yet. This was done within the Republican conference, and they'd held a secret ballot basically to see if their members were in favor of returning to earmarks, because the Democrats absolutely want to return to earmarks, and we'll get into that. But a secret ballot, think about that. Why do they have to have a secret ballot? Why? I mean, shouldn't we know who is voting anyway? To me, anytime they're doing a secret ballot, red flags go up for me. If Republicans, and this is Joel Pollack's opinion, but I share most of it, if Republicans do not hold a revote, they can expect conservatives to stay home in 2022 midterm elections. They will have blown their chance to retake the House and will deserve to lose. And Mr. Pollack is likely right there, but I don't know that we need to totally throw them out on this as far as losing the House back to the Democrats or letting the Democrats keep it, because I think we need to keep both the House. We need to take back the House and the Senate in 2022. And I'm going to tell you how we're going to do it here in just a moment. But I absolutely agree with Mr. Pollack that them voting to in secret to go with the Democrats, I wish I could say it's shocking. It's not, but we do need to hold them accountable for that. Earmarks are and were spending provisions that senators and representatives attach to bills that are likely to pass and be signed into law. Basically, they're a tag-on bill. So what happens is that there may be something like I'll give you a positive example first. In my little town of Hawthorne, when I was mayor, when I first took over, basically our city was half sewered and half not. And I knew that the decision that we could not exist like that, because some of the city was paying a sewer bill and some of the city was not. So whether or not it was the right decision to have a sewer system could be debatable, in my opinion, at that time, and still at this time. But to complete it was not. So I went about pushing for completion of the sewer system. And how that has to do with earmarks is, think about this. If you're trying to get a congressional appropriation for a project, it's one thing if you're Atlanta, Georgia, or Miami, Florida. But when you're a little town of 1,500 people in north central Florida, it's pretty hard to get even your own congressperson excited about it, let alone Congress in general. You don't have, like a city like Miami probably has half a dozen members of Congress, and, a big portion of who becomes senator and all relies on how they vote down there. So, it's a totally different situation. So quite often, and this is the positive side, if there is one of earmarks, your legislature will look and say, okay, well, we've got this big bill that's passing that's a highway bill, let's say. Well, I'm going to tag this earmark on there for my little city in Hawthorne, Florida, for the $500,000 they need to complete their sewer system, and see if I can cut a deal with someone else. And then someone else will say, okay, well, I'll sponsor, or I'll help you with your earmark for your sewer system if you help me for one over here that I need for a drainage system at this park on the beach or something. And that's kind of how it goes. Now, if they were honest about it and they were hard working, it wouldn't be that big a problem. But this thing, like everything else, it corrupts. They don't work on actual real budgets anymore. These omnibus spending bills. And so these earmarks just get absolutely crazy to the point that they become just pet projects and everything else, bridges to nowhere, that type of thing. So overall, I think that these earmarks should be eliminated, because Congress should be forced to actually take up spending bills in a normal way, which they still don't, even with the absence of earmarks. All right, let's keep going. The Congressional Research Service defines them, talking about earmarks, as a benefit to a specific entity or state, locality, or congressional district other than through statutory or administrative formula or competitive award process. So they just didn't go through the right process. They allow members of Congress to shower port projects on their districts or to reward favorite donors and special interests. And I agree with that 100%. And I had to admit up front that I have used earmarks myself. And and of course, my earmark was good and yours was not. So we're all addicted to government money. I've been telling you that for a long time. But the problem is Congress overall, there's twofold problem. They're connected. One, Congress is just lazy. They just don't want to do their due diligence on any of this kind of stuff. And they throw all these bills together. For instance, they could do a separate bill, going back to my little situation, for like rural communities and create a pool of money, and then you qualify to get into it. They used to do that, but now it's gotten to where they just throw this big chunk into bills and it gets crazy. Also, if they simply stuck to the Constitution and they wouldn't be taking up all kind of issues that have zero to do with Congress that are better left to the states, then maybe they'd actually have time to do the work that would help a small community like mine. But instead, they've become this big, bloated federal government that is growing bigger by the moment. And earmarks, even though there are some good aspects to them, would only add fuel to the fire of this ever-expanding government. So I am, like Mr. Pollock, opposed to him. Donald Trump, excuse me, suggested bringing back earmarks in 2018, Alabama, with better controls. You know, that's kind of the promise of, like I say, my earmark was better, was good, yours was not, so we just need better controls. And Mr. Pollock makes the case here, he says, as the way to break through Democratic resistance on legislative priorities such as infrastructure, which is one of the ways earmarks are used, where there was potential for cooperation. But Mr. Pollock says, and I would tend to agree with him, but if that argument made sense when Republicans control both chambers of Congress and the House, it makes no sense for Republicans when they are in the minority. Well, the only thing I would tell you to that, Mr. Pollock, is something my listeners already know. This Republican Party in general, especially the swamp rats that occupy Washington, including the House and the Senate, they're great at being a minority party. They're better at being a minority party than the Democrats are, because all they have to do is sit back, complain, be held accountable for nothing, and raise money. That's all they have to do, and they don't have to be responsible for anything. Earmarks are a tool for Democrats to break the unity of the opposition this is Mr. Pollock's opinion, by bribing the few votes they need to provide bipartisanship, which I tell you all the time, bipartisanship means Republicans cave. I know what it's supposed to mean in the dictionary, but when you trust me on this, when you hear the word bipartisanship, pretty much without exception, it means Republicans cave. So it says, while impatient Republicans may want to show their constituents they can achieve something in the minority, they would undermine the opposition as a whole. Well, the only thing I would somewhat disagree with Mr. Pollock on this is that I'm not sure these Republicans need earmarks as an opportunity to break away. I mean, just look at what happened while I've been gone. Republicans have actually voted with Democrats on gun control bills, of all things, just using as an example. Something they're going to say steadfast against. But we had numerous Republicans in the House vote for a couple of gun control bills, and there was no earmarks involved in that. And, look what just happened, ladies and gentlemen. I want to point out something to you about Democrats. They will use any excuse whatsoever to try to come after guns. And the only thing I'm a little shocked at is they haven't used these Atlanta shootings, these spa shootings, to come after guns just yet. Now, give them time. But I guess the narrative of Asian hate crimes is certainly stronger at the moment. Did you see what Kamala Harris did yesterday? She came out vehemently, full-throatedly condemning and blaming the killings at these spas on Asian hate crime. When the police there's no evidence, first of all, that it was a hate crime. In fact, what little bit of evidence we have suggests that it was a sex crime targeted at these sex industries. Not condoning it any way, shape, or form. But the investigators did make a statement at a press conference yesterday, said that in all their interviews with the suspect, which they have arrested in this case, that his motivation was sexually oriented, not racially motivated. Yet Kamala Harris and the Democrats, including Joe Biden himself, have already essentially, and President Obama as well, have come out now and said this is just one more example of hate crimes. And I expect them to turn it to the gun control issue the minute the hate crime part fades away. So we'll see. These Democrats know no shame. They want to tear us apart no matter what. Let me check my time. Doing okay. Hopefully I'm holding up pretty good. When Democrats signaled in December that they would reintroduce earmarks, Republicans had an opportunity to show they were the only party that was serious about ending waste and corruption. And this is what Mr. Pollock is saying. The only thing I would point out to Mr. Pollock, and I like his writing, by the way, that the Republicans have had multiple chances to demonstrate that they were the party that would do away with waste and corruption. And I wouldn't say they've done a very good job of demonstrating that. If anything, they've demonstrated their swamp rattiness. And even during the height of President Trump's presidency, we couldn't get spending under control. President Trump, that is one area where I would fault him actually a great deal. And I'm a great admirer of the president, and I'm getting ready to talk about how he can be part of the solution to all this, and we can too in just a moment. But the reality is that President Trump wasn't the best, most fiscal responsible. Now, I think had he had a Congress with some courage, he would have led them in that direction. But they fought him tooth and nail over spending. I mean, they just spent money on different stuff. That's all there is to it. Back to the article. Instead, they have joined the Democrats back at the trough. He's absolutely right about that. They broke the promise that Boehner had made in 2010, which is the one that when they honored more than a decade for as far as doing away with earmarks, kind of at the height of the Tea Party. Even when it might have helped Trump politically for them to change their minds. So the Republicans had chances to expand upon this anti-corruption that the Tea Party brought forward, this fiscal responsibility. And I don't think you could say that they absolutely carried through on all their promises. But this pigs at a trough image, I got to play you. I hadn't played this in a while. This is one of the greatest political ads in the history of political ads. It's from my very good friend, Ted Yoho, former congressman, who beat a 26-year incumbent in Cliff Stearns, became our congressman, then actually part of his campaign, and you'll hear it in the ad, is about term limits and how he was going to self-term limit. And he did, kept his word, and boy, do we miss Ted Yoho. But I want to play this pigs at the trough ad because it tells you really in this ad what the problem was in D.C., still is in D.C. Check it out.
Career politicians, they're like pigs feeding at the trough. Career politicians got us in this mess, but all they do is throw mud at each other. I'm Ted Yoho. I'm a conservative businessman and a veterinarian. The career politicians have given us $16 trillion in debt. It's time for new leadership. I'll repeal Obamacare and balance the budget. And after 8 years in Washington, I'll come home. Let's put the mudslinging aside, run the pigs out of the trough, and put America first. I'm Ted Yoho, and I approve this message. How about you?
Ted, I can tell you, brother, you are greatly missed, sir. We'll have to get him on the show here, see what he's up to these days. But pigs at the trough, that's exactly what we have. I got a mentor of mine, Tom Hayes Morrison. He kind of helped get me started in this business, actually. And he used to say on a radio show that he had that there was only one party, the party of big government. And there was a left wing and a right wing. And I always thought he was on to something there. And I definitely think the higher up the feed trough you go, the more you actually see that. So what we have is a major problem at the federal level. Mr. Trump, one of the greatest things he did during his 4 years, and I don't mean this in any light or slight to him at all, he exposed the rot in the tree of liberty up there. And we need to ask ourselves what we can do about this. So I want to tell you my thoughts on how this ties back into what Mr. Trump can do, what he should do. People talk about assuming he's going to run for president 2024. There's a lot that can be done and needs to be done between now and then, like shoring up elections. It's coming out every day now that Donald Trump was right about a lot of this election mod. We don't say the F word here. Mod, more of it every day. There was some rulings in Michigan just the other day There's a story out of Georgia that the Washington Post was lying about and it even went to the impeachment part of it when Donald Trump was asking them to find him some votes. Turns out that was it was a lie at the time, and we all really knew it. But it turns out that the Washington Post knew they were pushing a fabricated story. So what do we need to do? Part of this I say jokingly, but the biggest part of it I absolutely think we need to do. We need a Trump takeover. We need it, and I'm not talking about an insurrection, none of that kind of stuff. We need Donald Trump. He talked about this a little bit at CPAC. We need him to form this political action committee because a lot of us want to know what to do. And we need him to basically identify the entire slate of Congress people, men and women across the board, and those that need to be primaried, we need to primary them. But we need to take the House back and we need to take the Senate back. And so what we need is Donald Trump to basically take charge of that, in my opinion, and point the way for those of us who support the MAGA agenda, America First, all of that. The 75 million, may not be all 75 million, but the chunk of us that are out there that want to actually stay and get politically involved, we need President Trump to point out his organization in locally where we need to vote, where we need to get rid of people, primary people, the right candidates, all of that stuff. We absolutely need that to happen. And as far as what vote to cast, I'm wanting to listen to President Trump. And when the time is right, I think, as I said before, he's already hired an expert. And we have a video of some training that they're doing right now. Billy Bob, my psychic sidekick, if you don't know who he is, he has a Twitter handle. It's at BillyBobBass1. And mine is at John Martin Talks. It's good to be back with you, Billy Bob. Hadn't seen him in over a week now. So anyway, we're going to play this video. This, to me, is what we ultimately need to cast to drain the swamp. Check it out. Around the bowl, baby, and down the hole. That's what we need to do. We'll get rid of all these people. If they want to have secret ballots, everything else, we'll just flush them out. So I would challenge President Trump and his organization to help us point the way, and we will pull the right lever when the time comes. Because, we could if we could take the House back, we could make Donald Trump Speaker of the House. A lot of people don't know that, but the Speaker of the House does not have to be a member of the House of Representatives, just has to get a vote of the majority of them. So, maybe we take President Trump, retake the House, retake the Senate, make him Speaker of the House, puts him third in line for the presidency, impeach the rest, and there you go. We don't have to wait till 2024. All right, let's move into another article. Very serious indeed. This is another Breitbart article, and it is about the governor of Texas and his warnings to us about what is happening in his backyard and what is on the way. A number of people crossing the border will grow tenfold, this according to Governor Abbott, and 100-fold. We can't get we can't get info on health status or catching smugglers. Now, this is an undoctored picture Mr. Biden let us in. On Wednesday's broadcast of Fox News Channel Hannity, Texas Governor Greg Abbott stated that the number of people coming across the border will grow tenfold and 100-fold, and that the state can't get access to information on the health situation of children who have entered the U.S. or information so they can arrest and prosecute the smugglers. So we can't get the information. This is a press conference, ladies and gentlemen. It was actually held yesterday. It was so impressive. That picture doesn't do it justice to see all of those Texas lawmen, so to speak, in the background with the governor there. I mean, nobody does it quite like the Texans when it comes to public safety officers. But he actually gave this same talk that he did on Hannity, or the same words, in a speech that it wasn't very well covered. Fox News, I was flipping through the dial yesterday. Fox News had the press conference. Newsmax had it. But the other mainstream media squadouche. They didn't cover it at all, like it didn't matter. Abbott said, "This is just the very beginning of what's going to be a massive expansion of the number of people coming across the border. It will grow tenfold and 100-fold, especially because of the way the Biden administration has handled this." Remember, he goes on to say this, and this is very important. This is the governor of Texas. "Remember during the presidential campaign when all of the candidates said we want open borders?" I do, Mr. Governor. I do remember it well. He said, "Well, guess what? Biden has provided those open borders. He's inviting everybody in, and the floodgates are now open, and Texas is at the forefront of it." Spot on, sir. There is no question about it. They are here. He went on to say, the governor, "The Biden administration is not being transparent with either the governor of Texas or the Texas Department of State Health." He said he couldn't even get actual numbers of how many children have crossed the border by themselves, or in groups of children illegally. He couldn't get basic information about who has been tested for COVID and how many of them are being released, criminals being released, all of these kind of things. He couldn't get basic information that was required in order to make his citizens safe in the state of Texas. And when I think about what I just went through with COVID, and I think about what other people are going to have to go through if they, are as fortunate or unfortunate, depending on how you look at it. I mean, I'm blessed to have come through it. But, to allow people to come into this country knowingly infected with COVID and various other, now there's a Brazilian version of it that's supposed to be striking us, to allow them to come across the border without any check whatsoever, and knowing that it exposes my family to what I just went through. It's hard not to be bitter. It makes me angry that this is being allowed to happen. But I applaud Governor Abbott for standing up for this, because we absolutely have to do that. Let me just tell you, and we're going to conclude the show with this. I've been talking about this for a couple of months. I really believe there is time now that we need to start forming alliances, because I believe the action is going to be in the states. And I'm proposing that we form a Gulf Alliance. The states, it's bookended by Florida and Texas, with Mississippi and Alabama and Louisiana in the middle there. We have a lot of like-minded people there. And I believe we need to form an alliance. I'm not sure exactly. Business alliances, political alliances, because like Texas may be the forefront of taking on the border issue, and Florida may need to take on, the big tech issue or something like that. And I sincerely believe that this is what's going to have to happen, because we're not going to be able to rely on the federal government. They don't care what's happening in our states. They just don't care about the citizens. It's pretty obvious. When you hear what Governor Abbott was saying yesterday of the basic information that he cannot get, then you realize regardless of their rhetoric, they don't care about American citizens. Since I've been proposing this, I'll let you in on a little secret. I've actually had some conversations with some people way up the food chain from me, and we're going to push this a little bit and see what happens. I can't really reveal too much now because it is baby steps, but I can tell you that we need to, it doesn't matter where you are in this, if you're a patriot, you need to support people like Governor Abbott. You need to let him know that he's not only speaking for people in Texas, but millions of Americans across this great country. And the same thing goes with people like our great Governor Ron DeSantis. We've got to be proactive and we've got to support those people in the fight. But make no mistake about it, we're not going to be able to win at the federal level right now. We're going to have to fight them from the ground up, and it starts with these states. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. I'm truly grateful for the audience I have. I am truly blessed and know it. I've always known it, but more now than ever that I have this opportunity. I don't take it for granted. Thank you for tuning in. Lord willing, we'll be back tomorrow. But like I say each and every day, I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. Let's all pray for this great nation because she deserves it and needs it now more than ever. But like I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day.